South Africa continues to face a significant road safety challenge, with road fatalities notably higher than the global average. In 2023 alone, the country recorded over 11,000 road fatalities, equivalent to 19 deaths per 100,000 people. While this marks an improvement from the 21 fatalities per 100,000 in 2021, it remains alarmingly higher than the global average of 15 per 100,000, according to the latest data from 2021. The financial toll of these accidents is equally staggering, costing South Africa 205 billion in 2023. Beyond the numbers lies the human impact, particularly on our children and youth. As the 2025 school year kicks off, we'll explore how this road safety crisis affects learners and discuss actionable steps to keep them safer on our roads. Joining me for today's discussion is RAF Senior Analyst Motshidisi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lesego, for inviting me to the show.
It is so great to have you here. So you are a senior analyst at the Road Accident Fund. Tell me more about what that entails.
So part of my responsibility is to analyze data. This data we get from different stakeholders. External data like RTMC, they provide us with data of relating to crashes in South Africa. This data is used to identify hazardous locations reports. So these reports would range from profile how many people are dying on the roads, what kind of injuries are they facing, what kind of deaths from where, are they pedestrians, are they cyclists, so it would profile who dies on the South African roads. And this information or this report would inform the initiatives that the RAF would intend to partake or to embark on the following year to help reduce this number of accidents.
What does that look like for school-going children? What is the situation on the roads for children?
So, Lesego, when we bring it back home, it doesn't look great. As we look at yesterday, there were 4 children that died on our roads because they are pedestrians. And there's about 102 children that have died, if we are taking into context, in December alone. And this is quite alarming. If you look at the whole year, we're looking at 1,300 children that die. And these children are both passengers and pedestrians. 36% of them are being driven. So it's beyond their control. So it goes to the driver is the one in control. And some of them, 60% of them are pedestrians. So it means that they're either playing or they're walking to commuting to school or back to home.
Children are the most vulnerable group of road users in South Africa.
Indeed, they are. Hey, if you are looking at the age group between 5 and 19 years, they are the most active on the road, to put it that way. So either they're going to school and coming back. And most of them, they're using their feet to walk to school. So it making them more vulnerable. Because there's no adult supervision. It means that there's no adult supervision while they do those activities. And playing around, it means that they play outside and unsupervised. It makes them more vulnerable than any other age group that we're looking at.
What do you think are the key responsibilities of transport drivers?
So key transport drivers' responsibility are very huge in enhancing knowledge on how to behave in a motor vehicle. So when you're in a motor vehicle, you're expected as a passenger to take responsibility for your actions. Number one, there's a safety belt fitted in every vehicle. So Bomalome, they teach these children how to abide by passenger safety. So those passenger safety techniques are fastening your seatbelt, how to behave, etiquette in a car. Do not be destructive as a passenger. And which is a lot on part of the passenger safety now when they teach etiquette as a passenger. And besides that, when a passenger gets off that Malume transport or anti-transport, they become what? A pedestrian. They also enhance on that education of how those children can become safer pedestrians now. When you are crossing, they teach, they have that effect, especially bo malome. You'll hear a child will say, hey, malome is strict when it comes to walking, and so they play a huge role when it comes to teaching or educating a child on how to become a safer passenger and how to become a safer pedestrian.
There is this trend that we noticed with drivers, transport drivers, either taking, young people to outings, school outings, or it's after school now, it's relaxed. The music is blasting, the children are listening to the music, and that in itself can pose some safety risks. So, what advice would you give to the transport drivers in terms of that etiquette when you are driving somewhere?
Advice number one is that be as strict as possible as a malum. Understanding that you are carrying assets. So children are assets to this country. Should anything happen, you will be the one to blame. So that behavior shouldn't be tolerated in our transport system. And bomalume and aunties should be as strict as possible. If you do that, I drop you off. That's what they used to do in our days. You were not allowed to stick your hand out of the window. As hot as it was in the taxi, you were not even allowed to open the window. That's how they were. So I think it should go back to say, Malome, you are a parent. You are not just a Malome. You are a guardian. You are safeguarding the lives of these children. Have ground rules. I know with some other drivers that I've engaged, both Bo Auntie and Bo Malum, what they would do in this certain school that I observed this thing, they would eat outside and finish, enjoy, play the music. Then after, everyone goes on into their transport. So they would control it in a way. And it was a group of those malumes and aunties to say that in my car, we are not going to tolerate behaviors that are bad. We are going to behave ourselves in a manner that is appropriate. So for those that are not doing it, is to understand the risk that you are putting those children in if you are letting it slide to be the cool malume with the loud music. And loud music is really, really not necessary. As a driver, it's destructive. It's a very destructive thing. So I think it goes back to, when one sees that there's a certain, those malumes or those people that are transporting children for these school outing, is to engage them. That, this behavior shouldn't be accepted at all. That children, as whether they're youth or they're children, they should be taught on how to be safer passengers.
Yes.
And it goes back to Malume setting ground rules. And parents as well. And parents as well play a huge role to say that, Malume, now this is what I don't want. I don't want my child to be learning a behavior that I haven't taught them. Learning a behavior of sticking their heads out. Imagine a head out of a window. Imagine somebody pushing you. Those are the risks. Like if you can think of it that way, that I'm putting a child's life at risk.
And also it's teaching the children to respect the rules of the transport driver, of Malumele Auntie, when they say that, guys, we're not going to be opening the windows and sticking our heads out. We're not going to be blasting music. It's our parents as well teaching the children that you need to listen and respect the rules of, Umalume as well. So it goes both ways, I think.
Bomalume, they play a huge role when it comes to discipline. You said it. They teach punctuality. If you are not there, they leave you. So they can still instill the same discipline. If you don't behave, I don't have to take you. I can take another child that can behave.
Yes.
I'll give your parents their money if they're not agreeing, because there might be other parents that says, I want my child to be unruly in your vehicle. And you as Malume has the sole responsibility of these children to make sure that they are safe. Number one, they get to their destination safely. So, and that's a matter of being unsafe, practicing unsafe passenger behavior. Yeah.
How do we ensure, or how do transport companies ensure that those vehicles are roadworthy, they are suitable and comfortable for our children to travel in?
Fortunately for us, the government has acts or a legislation that requires that umalume must meet certain requirements now. That the car must have road safety or roadworthiness certificate, that even malume must comply with the rules and the legislation that the government sets out, that they must have a PRDP, professional driving permit. And also, when it comes to the manufacturer of a vehicle, that's the maintenance part now. Every vehicle manufacturer requires that a vehicle should be maintained, serviced within a certain kilometer. So when malume doesn't service the vehicle, the manufacturers would say, hey, you are due for a service. But one would also set reminders that I serviced my car, let's say 1,000 kilometers ago, and is due for a service every 1,000 kilometers. So malume would set a reminder on the phone that, hey, 1,000 kilometers was on a Friday, the 15th of whatever month, I need to do it again. So personal reminders. But moreover, we need maintenance, daily maintenance. We are required by the law to check your vehicle before any trip. It's called a pre-trip inspection. Check, are there any liquids leaking from my vehicle, oil, water, are my tires still okay for me to take this trip? Are my wiper blades working? Because some of those things, my brake lights, for example, they are the things that can deter or the things that can cause an accident. If your brake lights are not working or your indicator light is not working, that's the thing that can cause an accident because your intention is not known to the driver behind you.
What are the legal implications if your car as a transport driver is found to be unroadworthy?
There are legal implications, as you say. It differs from municipality to municipality. So some local municipality, that is your metros, would say that I would fine you for not complying with this. Maybe let's say a broken tail light, I would give you a fine. In some other municipalities, you'll get that you pay on spot fine.
Okay.
So they would require their monies there. And in some instances where there's more than 5 of those things that we talked about, your brake, steering wheel, the basic things that requires that a car should be roadworthy, they will take your license disc, meaning that that car is discontinued until you go and resolve those things, do a roadworthiness test again. That's when you'll be allowed to operate your vehicle again.
Okay. Yeah. And what would you say parents should look out for when they are choosing transport drivers for their children?
Parents should, like what I'm saying, roadworthiness. I think that for me is number one. If a car is unroadworthy, whether I'm not overloading like other transport drivers, they will overload. That is the difference between a child who's getting safer to school and a child who's not getting safe to school. So number one, roadworthiness. And malume, is he permitted to drive? As a parent, you have a duty to check those things. When you sign a contract, it is your right to check whether is malume fit enough to drive my child? Is malume's vehicle fit enough to ferry my child from school and back, And I think maybe for me, an added bonus would be, malume, do you overload children? Just to question around those things of overloading, because we overlook it and we say, malume, but just to ask.
Because it's affordable. I get it for some parents, you can see it's overload, but malume is cheaper than maybe, that other private car that you could use where there's space and the air conditioning works and things like that. We want to save costs, but those are important things that we need to look for because it could be putting your child in a high-risk situation without realizing it,
Yeah, I think so that on the overloading part, there are ways to assess.
Yes.
A person can give you an answer because you've asked it in a way that you are expecting a certain answer. But to assess, malume, how many children do you have? Which schools so you can almost do your own calculations that how is malume ferrying children from there? So what do you do? And they will tell you. In some instances, some other malumes, they have arrangement where they see that I can't take this load. They will give it off to another malume and say, I don't do this, but I will give some load to another malume. So they collaborate in their own space, not to adhere to not overloading children. Yes.
So what are some of the responsibilities of our transport drivers?
So over and above, Lesotho, teaching our children passenger safety techniques and pedestrian safety techniques, they manage time. So their responsibility is to get a child from point A to point B, especially
On
to
time.
school, on time. So that's their number one, and safe number two. So the distance part, Malume having to fetch children at different locations or that are further apart, that's what causes unnecessary
Yes.
speeding.
Because now you're in a hurry to
To go collect somewhere else where it's further. I've seen in this industry, like currently what the Bomalumes and Bo Auntie they're doing, is they manage their distances that they cover. So if they can't take, they will tell you, no, I can't take that. But there's another Malume who works in that certain area. So they've actually shared the roles or the responsibilities, seeing that the greediness of saying, I want to fetch the whole area or two areas that are 15 kilometers apart was putting our children at risk. But it went back to the safety education between the Department of Transport and the Bomalumes to say that our safety, our children's safety first. If you need to operate in this space, we need to maintain or we need to keep our children safe. So the distance part is to manage time.
Manage
that
your
children
time.
get on time to school.
Let's talk about the community. What is it that the community can do to come together and improve safety, especially around schools?
So there's a lot that communities can do. And it goes back to youth advocacy group. I can give one example where unemployed youth can start to participate in scholar patrol programs. And it's not only for the children that attends the school, and it's not only for the teachers that teach at that school, but advocacy groups, and it talks to education, number one. So what would you educate the community that is around that school about the rules, how to use the signs that are displayed within a scholar patrol or a school? If you can see nowadays, the speed limit that are set in school is 40. And what does that mean? What does that speed hump mean? So that education would talk to such things, that how do people adhere to the program itself? How do they comply to the program itself? That's one other way of doing it. And that same youth advocacy group would also advocate for change. There are some schools that don't have those facilities.
Yes.
And they see that this school there's something that might happen that is bad, an accident might happen. They can advocate, go to their what counselors to say that, we're identifying. It doesn't need that we should be in a group, but as a single person, you can identify that, within this school, there's a risk of an accident waiting to happen. And how do you do that? You do a needs analysis. You take another friends. Let's document the almost happened situation. It doesn't need that a child should die for us to start an intervention. Our road safety is all about preventative measures and not proactive measures. So it starts there with the youth identifying these needs assessment. Where's the nearest school that has a hazard? Or where are the nearest crossings that have hazards? Identify needs, do an observational study. Stand there with your friend for a week. Identify drivers that are non-compliant to a stop sign. That are just ignoring that there are pedestrians that need to pass there. And then report it to your local authority. A local authority is there to enforce the rules of the roads. Then you can rope them in and say that we've observed over a week that there's a lot of non-compliance when it comes to pedestrian safety within our areas. That's one way of the community can get involved in, even the scholar patrol, even the children, helping children to go to and from schools.
So, Motshidisi, tell me, how should parents address issues that they may have with transport drivers or with their schools if they feel like the safety needs of their children are not being met?
So one should do that with the utmost care, and not to go as you are fighting the person, but to actually, you are concerned, but you want also the action to be remedied. Speak to Malume like I said, with the overloading. Ask in a manner that won't aggravate a person, that I'm not undermining you, I'm not undermining what you're doing, but so reported that 123 is not adhered to. You are overloading. For example, one of the child in the transport. Malume, can you not seek alternative help from other transport drivers? But if one is afraid, because there are parents who are afraid to address this, I think for me, one would go to the school. Law enforcers are there to help. If you've witnessed something that is happening, you can enforce your local authorities and say that, Malume with the plate number so is not adhering to this thing. Can you talk to him? But it goes back to the schools as well. Because, for example, let's talk about the dropping off. A Malume transport driver is supposed to drop off a child at a designated place, somewhere safer.
So the school is supposed to have a designated drop-off
Yes, they should have a safe designated drop-off zone. Because those children need to get inside the premises safely. So I think if you can't address it as a parent, you go to the principal or go to their designated scholar dismissal or scholar acceptance, points. Go speak to one of those teachers and say that, I think this Malume is not adhering to the rules of the school.
As the Road Accident Fund, I want to know, what are we doing? What is our role?
Our role has been so significant, Lesego, in terms of providing uniforms together with the Department of Transport, the Provincial Department of Transport Road Safety. We've issued out bibs to those schools that needs those for the scholar patrol program. Yeah, we've issued to over 1,000 learners, over 100 schools from the Northwest, Northern Cape, Limpopo, Eastern Cape, where we are trying to say that we are trying to address this. We've even had road infrastructure. It's a low cost where we erect a speed hump and just so that there could be adherence.
Yes.
So adherence, the RAF is doing quite a lot with our stakeholders out there. And it starts with identifying that need, that children are dying. How can we prevent it as the RAF? How can we give them a better future? How can we reduce those children that are dying on the roads?
On the roads,
yes,
as the most vulnerable group
yes,
on our roads. Are there opportunities for schools or communities to partner RAF workshops or awareness campaigns for children and drivers?
Yes, Lesego, there's plenty of opportunities for those partnerships, and we look forward to those. It just tells us that there is a need for people to know better about the RAF services, and they want to rectify the risks that they've identified. We've done defensive driver workshop trainings in schools where we'll ask a school, may we use your facilities? And that's where we get to inform even those the Malume drivers or even the taxi drivers, the workshops that we conduct about our services. Even the schools, when we are invited, when we partner with those schools and the Department of Transport in the provincial space, that's when we are invited to those schools. We get to talk about our products and benefits, or even the other programs that we partake in, or we do, the youth program that we do, the scholar transport driver programs that we do. So there are those opportunities that are available.
How do they do that? How do they reach out to you in order to get that going?
So most of these invitation or these partnerships that we get through the local authority. That's your local municipality traffic.
Okay.
They would say that we've identified a need. People do not know the RAF services. Can you come to this certain area and educate them about your products? People are eager to know about the products. How can you claim? Where can you claim? Who can claim? So they would invite us, the local authorities, even the teachers or the South African police. Some of the members would say, I've identified that we don't have the common knowledge of how the RAF works. Yes, we work with accident report forms, but I don't think our knowledge is the way that you are explaining to me as an individual, for example. So we'd ask that, can you come and explain, or can you come and do a presentation on the RAF benefits? And those benefits would include uh, programs as well that we do as road safety as well. That for the youth, we have this, for drivers, we have these kind of
Yes.
programs that we are doing to reduce those number of accidents that we are seeing on the roads. We do host a lot of activations,
Yes.
mall activations. You'll think that we've been doing this RAF activations, that all people know about the services, know about the prescription. They don't. And there is a hunger. So one way that I've resorted on doing, the people that will refer other people to me, that also Motshidisi, please check for us the claim. I use the WhatsApp. So our WhatsApp line is very, very efficient and well informed on those frequently asked questions. And I've seen the gratitude when people, when we've given them that this WhatsApp number, that, oh, it's so insightful, it's so, and because people have data, so they sit on their WhatsApps. It's something that is relevant to the now generation. So it works faster and well for them.
It's
it is quite effective.
It's quite effective. It's one of the many interventions we've introduced recently for people to get hold of us, because previously it was through our call center. So now we have the WhatsApp line, we have the SMS line, we have a chatbot on our website. So there's so many different ways that people can actually gain access to information. So when you are in that situation as a parent and your child has been in a car accident and you need, to understand more about your claims process, there's so many ways to reach the Road Accident Fund to actually get the assistance that you need. What can we do better in 2025 to, keep decreasing these statistics?
The one that I can think of the top of my head is using your safety belt. As a passenger, that's the number one important thing that you can do as a passenger as well. It's not a driver thing, the way people perceive it, but as parents, teach our children to be restrained. It's so saddening when you see a child standing in a car. And I would wonder, does this person ever think that they are safe, but the next vehicle behind them can cause an accident? And what would happen to the child's skull? That's the first thing that opens the windscreen. So safety belts are a requirement, and by law, you should be fined for it, for non-restraint. And our children should be taught to wear a safety belt. My child uses a school transport as well. That's what we talk about. I will talk with, for me, fortunately, I talk with them about safety and make them understand the impact. So the impact of you not wearing a safety belt is an impact of you surviving severe injuries or death. Yeah, as a pedestrian, I would also say that's number one. Number two, as a pedestrian, always communicate with the driver before crossing. We know the rules of the road, but even when the robot is green, it doesn't mean that you just go. Make sure that it's safe. Make sure it's looking both ways, right, left, right, and making sure that the car sees you or the driver acknowledges that you are going to cross the road, even though it's green for you as a pedestrian.
What advice, what tips would you give to parents, about how they can educate children about how to conduct themselves on the roads?
So one would look at, number one, parents would supervise themselves, especially children that are younger than the age of 10. When we look at our school system, it takes a term for one to learn a concept. So I think parents should look at it that way, that for you to teach a child road safety techniques or safety tips, you need to do it for over a month. You can't just tell a child, don't do this, don't do that. It's a practical thing. So a parent needs to walk with a child, teach them those tips, teach them how to walk, guide them, and until the concept has been understood that this is how I walk safely on the roads. But it entails parents being a part of that whole tips, that don't walk on the side on the road, walk on the pavements. It requires a practical training more than a theoretical training where you are telling a child, don't do this and don't do that and do this. Yeah.
So other than the parent, who else is responsible for educating our children about road safety?
So our schools does a whole lot when it comes to school safety, where it's both theoretical and some schools even have simulation of how the roads are. So they do a practical training within the school campuses or the school premises. And within that, the teachers take a huge a role in doing in educating our children. But it goes back to parents are the most important. I see my parent doing the wrong thing, I'm more likely to learn that behavior, the wrong behavior. At school, the children have this. They will come back and say, "My teacher says 1, 2, 3," and a parent will insist on doing the wrong thing. So it goes back to us as parents to teach our children the right things of doing things. So when a child says, "My teacher says this," you don't negate. You actually agree with them and do it as it is being taught. So being patient with our children, I think that's where the schools play an important role. Even other community members that specializes in such roles as to teach. Yes.
And I think that, the most important thing that I've seen, I don't think parents understand road safety rules either. I don't think, and not just parents, people don't take the time to learn, your basic road safety tips. For example, when you are standing, by the robot, or a zebra crossing, what do you do first? Do you look right? Do you look left? And then do you look right again, or do you look left, then you look right? We don't know that basic one. So if you don't know it, then how do you educate your child about it? So I say to say that instead of it being a debate between teachers and parents, I think that it is also the parents' responsibility to take the time to learn and understand those road rules. So when they impart that knowledge to their children, they're also giving the correct knowledge to their children. So I agree that the primary responsibility should be with the parent. And I want parents, or I would really like to see parents taking the time to also learn about road rules so they can impart the correct road safety education to their children. Thank you so much, Motshidisi, for joining us on this very educational episode. I think that it was much needed, especially now that schools have reopened, people are back at work, and really we're trying to lower those statistics that we have on road fatalities in South Africa. And the thing that I've learned the most from today's session with you is that it is everyone's responsibility to make sure that our children are safe on the roads, from our transport drivers, abo malume, nabo auntie, to the parents, to our teachers, to the community at large. Let us all work together to ensure that our kids are safe on the roads. We have so many exciting episodes coming up in 2025 here at the RAF podcast. So please do keep watching, and we will give you all the resources, the tools, and the contacts that you need in order to reach us so we can give our services to the people. And always remember, your trip shouldn't end with RIP. Goodbye.